work from home is under attack by management that just simply doesn't get it. Hey everyone, this is Kevin the Apptrepreneur, and I read a lot of articles these days about how work from home is coming to an end. That the bosses have had enough, they want you to come back into the office, and that's that. Basically, they want to act as if the last couple years didn't exist, that these companies weren't fine being productive, that they were not more productive when people work from home. But no, we are losing control of the employees, we are losing control of the culture, and we want you to come back to the office. And look, here's the thing. I respect people like Elon Musk. I think Elon Musk is a brilliant man. But what a tone-deaf argument to be making when you say, hey, everyone, you got to be coming back in the office. If you don't want to come to the office, you might as well find another job. Yeah, ask people to do that during the time when gas is getting so expensive that most people are finding it hard to afford to come back to the office. That's actually going to be a very interesting thing. Like, all this pushback during a time when coming back to the office means that you are burdening your employees with an expense that in most circumstances they do not need to pay. Or, like, it is becoming ridiculous, and I am a strong proponent of work from home. My wife does not want to get an office job again, and I will hold off as long as possible. I will not get an office job unless I absolutely have to again. And yet companies seem to not get it. And I'm starting to think if there's maybe like a hit piece. I mean, when you start reading articles like this from Fast Company, if maybe the companies aren't paying these well-respected magazines to write hit pieces on the whole concept of work from home. Because I read an article like this and it is absolutely aggravating to read because they seem to be almost willfully ignoring the facts and the experience that we have gained from the last couple of years. And we're going to look through this article by Fast Company, and this is what finally made me want to make this video. So this article is titled "Why Your Boss Might Fire People Rather Than Allow Remote Work." And the subheadline is "Leaders Are Weighing the Benefits of Some Forms of Remote Schedules Against Company-Wide Efficiency." Yeah. So let's get into this. And this is from Jim Frawley. There are many people claiming the pandemic will result in, quote, the death of the office. Well, look, in all fairness, even I thought that was a little extreme. However, for many jobs, specifically collaborative, high-skill, and high-value roles, working from home doesn't cut it. Really? You mean all of those podcasts and news anchors that were able to do their job efficiently, remotely, that isn't cutting it? Whatever. Working from home has its benefits, freedom and flexibility being just a couple of them. And so it may not become a thing of the past entirely. One solution for the future is an organized hybrid model that recognizes the benefits of flexibility on the productivity and overall well-being of the employees. But with that in mind, executives and employees alike need to prepare to return to offices in the near future. Oh, really? Some people will say over my dead body. After 2 years of remote work, many companies are already choosing to return to the office. Companies like Citigroup, BNY Mellon, American Express, Goldman Sachs, JP Morgan Chase, Google, and Twitter are all calling workers back to their office in a hybrid model that might not be so optimal. A recent Good Hire survey found that 77% of managers would take action if workers do not come back to the office. You know, we've seen the result of managers who take action. It's not pretty. Like, remember when when Apple basically said, hey, everyone needs to come back into the office, and their AI director opposed it, and Apple pretty much said, oh, what are you going to do, quit? Yeah, I am going to quit. And then Apple put a pause. We've seen this story before. The companies have been trying, but the thing is, they realize that the employees got them by the balls. They don't want to admit it, but this keeps getting delayed because every time they threaten to do it, so many people threaten to leave that they might not have a company afterwards. And this is, by the way, for anyone who's an Uber driver, this is why your damn strikes never worked. You know, I went to how many of those things, and I'd always ask, are you going to go back drive for Uber tomorrow? Absolutely, you're going to go back. Screw you. No wonder your strikes were meaningless. But employees at Apple, at Google, at Facebook, and now Tesla, they say, screw you, we don't want to come to the office. Guess what? You're not going back to the office because these companies, as long as they put on a good show, they can pretend like, hey, you're not important to them. But you say, well, 70% of us are going to leave then? Oh, shoot, I guess we're going to make a compromise. There's a reason why return to the office did not become a big thing. It's because the employees have stood firm and they're going to stand firm. But hey, let's continue reading that Fast Company and see exactly what happens, because Fast Company says what it's going to look like. And of course, they are not understanding why people like remote work. So, what does the future of the workplace look like, and how does the hybrid model fit into that future? It comes down to a matter of perspective. Who has the power? Well, we found out who has the power. Businesses weren't prepared for the pandemic, so they needed people to work from home. The technological infrastructure that made that possible has come leaps and bounds since that time. All of a sudden, work was no longer a destination that required an often lengthy and hectic commute, but rather a trip to the coffee pot and a seat at the kitchen table. You really think people are going to willingly give that up? A more competitive job market, on the other hand, allows employees to determine the future of the work environment. 2/3 of US and UK workers who experienced more work flexibility during the pandemic want employers to prioritize work-life balance moving forward. So the question becomes, do the benefits of working from home, even in a hybrid model, outweigh the consequences? What consequences have happened? Do you know any company that has gone under or severely lessened in their impact on the world because of remote work? I mean, yeah, you can't do remote work at your McDonald's job. Maybe Target and Walmart let go of a few more cashiers because, you know, self-checkout is kind of a thing and, you know, you can just do that. But most office jobs, I can't think of a single office job where it was like, oh, this affected productivity. If you weren't doing your job, you got fired, and guess what? They found out whether or not you were doing your job the same way as when you were in the office. They checked their emails and they checked the Google Drive. And if you weren't producing your work, guess what? There were consequences. So let's continue. One case study found that employees who worked from home for a period of time for 9 months were 13.5% more productive than their in-office counterparts. But just because someone claims to be more productive, and genuinely may be, a bigger question is whether it is pushing the business forward. Well, if they're more productive, probably. The efficiency of a business ecosystem is larger than one employee, larger even than entire departments. Yeah, I call BS on that. Yeah, I know that there are some departments that lose money, and maybe getting rid of that department is one thing. But if your department is productive, it's more productive at home, and to force people to come back means that that department's going to suffer, and that department is a key pillar in your company, then guess what? The employees have the upper hand. Collaborative workers, individuals tasked with creative projects in virtual teams, report feeling more like workers and less like members of a family. Studies also show that the best creative work takes place when a team is in a state of flow, focusing their collective attention on a single task, but remote work makes it difficult to keep everyone engaged. You know, I would like to see a study on that, because it's funny how like they are able to provide statistics for how some employees are more productive, but then they say like, oh, when it's collaborative, you know, it makes people hard to be engaged. How? Pixar finished Soul and Turning Red primarily from remote, and those movies rock. They're excellent. Do you think the creative input was hurt by being remote on those features? I think some of Lightyear and Luca were even made remotely, so don't tell me that if you're a creative person, you have to be at the office. You clearly don't. Heck, cartoonists and stuff have been producing their work outside of the office for years, so I don't know what their excuse is, and they communicated fine with their editors. This This may not affect the productivity of all roles, such as technical jobs that require minimal teamwork, but it certainly affects all employees. Continue. I'd be interested in this. Working on-site makes it more likely to have a spontaneous communication, increasing workers' feeling of connection with their teammates by more than 20% compared to at-home workers. And this, along with the next paragraph, is why I finally decided to make a video about this. Many people want more than a paycheck when they come to work. Strengthening company culture means creating that sense of unity and camaraderie through high levels of communication among supervisors and staff, opportunity for employees to provide input and feedback, and a feeling of common values and goals. Bullshit! You know what? Most employees do not care about any of this. When it comes to company culture, you think they care about company culture? I can guarantee you they don't. They concern themselves with good work, yes. They want to do the best job, yes. They will give feedback because if it makes their job easier, yes. But at the end of the day, they want a paycheck. They want a paycheck. It's like, how many of you have been in an office setting and the company announces like to brighten your day, like Thursday is going to be free donut day. You want to know what would brighten the employees a little bit more? Adding an extra zero to their paycheck. You want to know what's going to make them feel more valuable? Hey, you are overperforming. We're going to give you a bonus check, or we are going to raise your salary because you have proven to be a valuable worker. That is what they care about. They do not care about the company's culture. Did the company culture help me when it was time to let me go because of a lack of work? No. In fact, I think there's a little bit of an imbalance when it comes to company culture because companies expect you to give a 2-week notice if you're not going to work for them anymore. But do they offer the same thing in return so that you can have time to wrap up, to get your resume dusted off, to say goodbye to people, to say like, hey, we have to let you go. We're going to give you 2 more weeks. And then we're going to do all that. Like, no, it's just, you're gone. Bye-bye. Like, company culture is a joke. And anyone who says company culture is real are probably at the top. They think they've got company culture. They're doing things that people are doing what they tell them to do, but they're doing what they're told because you're their boss and they don't want to get fired. But if you went up and asked them and say, hey, does this thing make you feel good at work? Like, what would make you feel good at work? Every single time, I guarantee you what would make them feel better at work. Money. And that's something you can't say. But you know what has made people feel more appreciated at work? That they have done studies that show that people feel more comfortable at work and feel more valued? Remote work. Because now with remote work, hey, I don't have to get in traffic. My time is respected. I have more of it. And I am saving money, especially on gas. Unless you're that idiot engineer from Amazon who's going to try to ruin remote work for all of us. See the video above for more details on that one. But let's continue this. People's perceptions of their relationships and sense of belonging in the workplace tie directly to the success of the company. No, it doesn't. You know, in fact, if anything, that can sour an employee. The managers come down and talk about how much money they're making, how successful they're being. Look at what we're doing. It's like, great. Am I getting a pay raise? No. So they don't care. The individual's perception of a family approach leads to increased employee retention and recruitment, improved performance, and overall positive feelings associated with the workplace. So does raising the paycheck, but you will never see them write articles arguing for why people should get stable raises. People do not care about the family approach. They don't. I mean, in some cases, they do. If you are a younger worker and you don't have a lot of time, if you don't have a lot of hobbies per se, maybe you go to work and it's like, yeah, this is your life, this is your family, because you're on the outs with your real family. You don't have a church you go to, you don't have a group that plays backgammon, whatever. Like, but those people are very rare, and those are the people that are most likely to be walked all over, by the way, because they don't stand up for themselves. Anyway, it would be challenging to find an employer that says it's easier to build those kinds of relationships online rather than in person. I mean, it is true that it is a little more challenging to build relationships online, but the internet has been around for a couple decades now. People are used to meeting people online. Heck, I met my wife online. We got married. You know, Dark Road Run, he became a real life friend. We started talking online through this YouTube channel. So it's a little more difficult, but it's not impossible. So it's as simple as comparing it to online dating. Oh, really? You can only go so far trading direct messages and phone calls until you simply must meet in person to come to that decision. Yeah, but that's... I mean, my goodness, where do I begin? Like, I don't even know what he's connecting it to. Like, I mean, yeah, it's a relationship, but your work is not your relationship. Again, this is going off the perception that people want work to be a relationship. Most people don't. In fact, there was a TikTok video I saw, and I might make a separate video about this. Leave comments below if you want me to comment on this, about this girl who basically understands what work is. It's a job. You go in, you clock in, you get money, and you leave. And she is criticized routinely because she does not volunteer to stay late, and she doesn't hang out with her coworkers because, hey, you're nice, but this is not my life. I have a life outside of work. This is just how I make money. For most people, the job is where you make money. It's not where you're going to have a social skill. And by the way, for those who say, like, well, maybe you can meet your wife at work, you know what? Companies frown upon friendships and relationships like that at work. They want you to have a relationship with the company, but they don't want you to have a relationship with the company. So it's very weird. Anyway, going forward, organizations will do well to teach people how to create work, to learn how to make the time in the office beneficial for themselves as well. I don't know what to say to that. Again, they just want to be paid, and if they can do the job at work or at home, I mean, I don't know what point he's making. It's almost an entrepreneurial mindset that needs to come in. If an entrepreneur is forced to spend time in a certain place, they are allocating much of that time to networking, building business, and sharing ideas. Senior people in organizations understand this and are doing this. But here's the thing. Entrepreneurs wouldn't force themselves into a situation that doesn't work for them. They will find out what works for them, and if let's say like your employees are all entrepreneurs, which they're not, they're hired employees. But if you want to use that example, if the person comes forward and says, hey, I like doing work, I thrive at home, I don't need to talk to people to get my work done, I don't need to talk to people to even innovate, I can just reach out once in a while and say, hey, I have an idea, can we try this? And they can say yes, and then here it is. I write news articles, and those are very collaborative in some cases because I have to talk to my editors, and I've not once spoken to my editor because they can just say, hey, this isn't working. And it's fine. It's perfectly fine. Senior people in organizations came up from a different time where these weren't options, and so they just don't understand that the world has changed. There's one more paragraph. Let's finish it up. The hybrid model may be the future for many organizations, but they will have to work at creating a healthy culture that supports different types of roles and employees. I actually don't disagree with that. It will be a learning curve to make hybrid work. The question companies need to ask is, why are they bringing their employees back? Whatever the answer is, it should drive the way they prepare their people for the return to the office. And that is the one aspect that I agree with. I absolutely agree that, yeah, if you are going to be asking your employees to come back to the office, you need to give them a real, tangible reason to. I mean, look, let's use movies for an example, because I'm a big movie fan. There is a famous story that went on where I think it was either Cary Grant or Gary Cooper. I don't remember exactly which one, but they were working on an Alfred Hitchcock movie. And by the way, Hitchcock is my favorite director, for those who are not aware. And Hitchcock was also like a stingy filmmaker. He wanted you read the lines, I'm directing it, and he doesn't want to be collaborative. He has a vision, and he is on the top, and he wants you to execute that vision. And Grant or Cooper, I'm going to say it was Cary Grant, to be honest, because he's been in a few Hitchcock films, was confused about one of the scenes he was filming, and he went up to Hitchcock and he said, "What's my motivation?" And Hitchcock said, "Your paycheck." Now, that's a funny story. That's an absolutely hilarious story. But you can understand that, hey, for Cary Grant, this is an art form. I'm creating a role. I'm trying to get into the mindset of this character. And I don't know what the motivation is. So how am I supposed to be feeling right now? When he goes to the boss, and the boss says, your paycheck's your motivation. But is that going to work for employees? There's a situation with my last employer, and I'm not going to say exactly what it was. Again, I'm not saying who the employer was, but there was a problem that came up that was unique. It required me to do something, but it required me to do it so minuscule that it was an easy thing to miss during the paperwork. And they kept saying, you got to hit it. You got to catch this. You got to do this. And eventually they wrote me up because I wasn't catching it. But here's the things. That didn't encourage me to do anything. It's like, basically do it right. Okay, but here's a problem on why it's difficult to do this right. Because the environment means that you got to go this fast. You're expecting this much amount of work done. You're expecting this much amount of productivity. And it's easy to miss this thing. And threatening to fire people and write them up and stuff, it doesn't mean that they're going to automatically fix the problem. They're just going to get mad that they got written up for that. And after I got written up, weeks later, someone else came to me and said, hey, look, we notice you're still having a problem with this. Before we write you up again, is there anything we could be doing to make it so that you catch this in the future? And I thought about it and I said, can you make the text blue? Can you change the color of the font on this particular type of paperwork so that I know not to process it this way, but to process it this way? And brilliant, it worked. It worked. Never talked about it ever again. Now, did I need to be in the office for that to be a thing? No. They called on the phone. They called on the phone. And it worked. I read articles like this, and I suspect they're paid hit pieces by big companies, because the big companies keep threatening people to come back to the office. They keep saying, hey, we're going to get rid of you if you don't come back into the office. But the reality is that's not going to work. All the things that this article, that they want to feel valued and things like that, you take away their remote work and they don't feel valued. They don't care about the company culture. They care about their life. They want to make money and have a much more balanced work-life balance. And they are feeling unheard when they are threatened. And that's why every time these companies threaten, like, you have to come back or you're fired, it doesn't work, because I think people start sending in their 2 weeks notice. And I think it becomes so overwhelming, the companies realize they won't have a workforce if they go through with this. Because at the end of the day, the employees have the power. The people on top want to pretend like they have the power. They don't. They really do not. Especially in a job market, which, at least at the time being, there's 2 jobs for every 1 person out there. And heck, even Del Taco down the street is offering to pay $25 an hour. I still don't want that job, but you know what I'm saying? It shows that people are being valued. So I'm getting really tired of these companies talking about work culture and things like that. It doesn't matter. It really never did. Tell me this. When you say that you work for Amazon or Netflix or Google or Apple or Facebook, do people say, wow, good for you, they've got a good company culture? Or do they say, wow, you must be getting paid a lot of money, good for you? You know, and here's one of the sad things. This is going to be very, very difficult to actually enforce, because there are many people, I even have a couple friends, who have outright threatened to quit if they are forced back in the office by Apple or Google, especially the Silicon Valley companies. Why? Because it's now way too expensive to commute there, and they can't afford to live in that area either. It's actually kind of amazing how expensive some places can be, and yet people who work at these tech companies, they don't live in those areas because the perception of the value of those companies make the rent and housing so expensive that even the people who work there, and those are considered the jobs to get because of the financial benefits, still have to live out of town. They don't want to be paying for that gas. And so articles like what Fast Company wrote are offensive. And I'm getting really tired of companies trying to figure out how to get people back into the office instead of realizing, you know what, the world's changed. Let's make it an offer. Let's have some people come back to the office who want to come to the office. Maybe some extremely high level up people do have to come to the office a little bit more. And everyone else can work from home. And incentivize people to come to the office. Like, hey, if you start working your way up and you come to the office, you'll get paid this much money. If you come into the office, you are guaranteed a job that will pay enough for you to live there. You know, start incentivizing people to want to come back to the office. Don't threaten them. It's not going to work, because tech workers, unlike Uber drivers, are not going to put up with your bullshit about how culture is so much more important than money. It's not, and you know it's not. And that's where I am going to end it. I'd like to know what you think about this video and where you stand on all of this. And if there's any Uber drivers out there, I'm sorry. Again, I do sympathize for you, but you know, all those strikes, when you went back to driving the next day, I didn't know what you thought those strikes were going to do. Anyway, would love to know about all that. Comment below, like, favorite, share, subscribe, and as always, flame responsibly. Have a good one.